Things just got worse and worse and worse as the night went on. Again, valiant effort down the stretch for the Bucks. Just too little, too late. Let's go down and let's see what Coach Fletch and the rest of the crew has to say. As always, go Bulls. So let's head into the locker room right now and see what the guys have to say about that one. Wow. Where do the Buccaneers go from here? What an incredible atmosphere. What a good win for the Tampa Bay Lightning. They snapped a 7-game winning streak. How we feeling, Bucs Nation? It's time to party, baby.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Recher podcast. Happy Friday to you and yours. Hope everybody's having a fantastic start to your weekend. Hope you had a great week. Make sure you follow me on all social media platforms, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok. I am everywhere. Like and subscribe on YouTube. Make sure you hit that notifications bell so you get alerted when we go live. It's been a busy day already. I feel like I've had a complete day of work even before hopping on with you guys to talk some Tampa Bay sports here at noon on the Recher podcast. We got a big announcement on Monday about a guest that we're having on the program next week. So make sure, I'm tuning in every day, but Monday, a big announcement of a certain individual that will be joining us on the program next week. So Monday, make sure you listen, because I don't know if it's going to be the beginning of the show or the end of the show, but all I know, big guest next Thursday. Shout out to David Terry, always chiming in. Every single one of those super chats are always going to be appreciated, and also to the top of the queue. So like David donating $5 may not mean a lot for just one of you, but it means a whole heck of a lot for me. So those super chats, that's what's going to help me keep this thing going. That and some partnerships as well. So David Terry, I love you. Thank you so much. Allmark won that game. He certainly did. I'm going to tell you a little bit later on why that just drives me absolutely apeshit. I can't, man. I can't. It's just, I'm so over like that type of thing. I'm so over having that conversation. But I don't want to get into it yet. USA, good vibes to start the show. Good vibes. But Dave, we will get to that after our first interview today at 12:10. He'll be joining us in about 7 minutes. Marreese Speights is going to join us on the program. Big Mo is going to join us. Just got named the head basketball coach at Northside Christian. He was on the staff with the late, great Amir Abdur-Rahim right here at USF. And we know an incredible career in the NBA and at the University of Florida. We'll talk a little bit of everything on the program with Mo Speights. What a guy. What a guy. And, yeah, just really excited to have him on the program. We've been going back and forth. It's tough. I know he's got a lot of things going on. So for him to be able to join us on the program at 12:10 today, very, very grateful for that. And as Craig says, Mo Buckets on the program. Craig, hope you're well, buddy, out there. And also Dolan and Benny and everybody, thank you so much for the love. Happy Friday to you and yours. Also on the program today, Luke Easterling is going to join us from Athlon Sports to talk a little Buccaneer football as well, because, listen, it's never a bad idea to talk about the Bucs. He joins us at 12:35, and then Erik Erlendsson at 1 o'clock today. Couldn't join us on Wednesday. Why? Because he's at the Pirates-Rays game. He wanted to see Paul Skeen. So, listen, if you're not going to be able to make the program, that's a pretty good reason not to be able to come. So Erik joins us at 1 o'clock today to talk about the Lightning last night, what happened up there in Ottawa against the Senators, and also when we could see Isaac Howard. We had that conversation, and man, what a great chat yesterday with Eddie and Cena about that. They really took up the majority of our chat as Eddie was there in the airport when we could see Isaac Howard. So we got Ed's opinion on it. We're going to get Eric's opinion on it at 1 o'clock today. And all things Bolts as we inch closer and closer to the postseason. Can't wait for the playoffs to start. The Lightning could have clinched a playoff spot last night, but they did not do that. They lost 2-1 to the Ottawa Senators. Back in action tomorrow night in Buffalo. So if they can beat the Sabres, they officially clinch a playoff spot. Listen, they're going to get in no matter what. But with that being said, you also got to take care of business. And you want to be able to keep pace with the other teams in the Atlantic Division. I know John Cooper, no matter what, wants home ice advantage. That's the biggest thing for him. It doesn't matter when it, if you're the ones or you're going to be the 2 seed technically against the 7 seed, or that 2-3 matchup in the Atlantic Division. He just wants to have home ice. It is pivotal to him, and I understand. I understand wholeheartedly. That's what he wants for his team. Rays back in action tonight as well, so make sure you keep an eye on the Rays. They're in Texas to take on the Rangers. Zach Littell gets his second start. They wrapped up their first homestand with a 4-2 record, an 8:05 start tonight there at the ballpark in Arlington. The Rangers are 5-2 to start the season. You know that they can swing it. Got to keep the ball down, keep them in the yard. That thing is a bandbox at times. So to be able to keep the ball in the yard, this is one of those, all right, prove it type series early on in the season. You played some inferior competition going up against the Colorado Rockies and going against the Pittsburgh Pirates. So those that are not believers of the Tampa Bay Rays, then you're going to have to go out there and prove it. This is a nice prove it series for the Tampa Bay Rays as they take on the Texas Rangers. And that damage at the top of the lineup. That's the key to stopping those guys. The key to keeping the Tampa Bay Rays in check is to not let their leadoff hitter and their 2-hitter, those two guys that helped lead them to the World Series just a couple of years ago, Marcus Semien and Corey Seager. They coming off a 1-0 win against the Reds. We know what they can do offensively on back-to-back 1-0 wins against the Reds. But you look at the top of that lineup, and maybe, you look at Semien, you look at Wyatt Langford, what he can do, former Florida Gator, easy for me to say. But that's the big key. I know early on this season, Semien and Seager, it's ironic that they haven't played as well as you'd think, adding averages both under 300. But the recipe for success, and it has been since they got together. They were the two big free agent signings. It didn't work out that first year. It was a little bit of a risk to take on a guy like Corey Seager, who at a young age had some back issues, but man, it paid off in year 2 as they were able to win the World Series under Bruce Bochy. It was all even years when he was with the San Francisco Giants. Could it be all odd years with the Rangers? Watch out for those guys this season in 2025. So that is kind of my number one key to victory for the Rays. Keep those first two guys off the base pass, keep them out of the equation, and give yourself a chance to be able to win this series against Texas. I was at Rowdy's training today. Really good to catch up with Coach Robbie Nielsen and see everything that's going on. Jan Ekra, former Rowdy standout midfielder. He's actually part of the coaching staff now. We unboxed the jersey yesterday. If you missed it, it's up on my YouTube channel. Again, tiny.cc/JRecher. And I'll post the entire video of the unboxing on my social media at JRecher here coming up. But yeah, that's going to be something that I am going to take into the podcast now. I actually had 2 teams reach out to me yesterday for my address. They're going to send me some stuff, and we're going to do some unboxing here on the Jay Recher program as well. Let's get to this question. Craig, $10. Thank you, Craig. The super chats. Craig, appreciate you, my man. What are the concerns for the Bolts in the playoffs on the road? They don't win at Ottawa without best player. Also have issues with Habs and Leafs, alarming me for postseason. Also, shorthanded goals are alarming. I'm with you, buddy. I'm with you. And this is something that you cannot turn a switch on and off. You can't. You have to be able to take their defense and their offense on the road and be able to play well. Sometimes you look at teams and they struggle on the road, and a lot of the times it's defensively. Can you play that strong defensively on the road? If you can't, you're really going to have struggles. To me, it's a little bit different for the Lightning. I'm more worried about their secondary scoring on the road. And I know you'll look at the game last night. Oh, you gave up 2. You should only win that way. Fine. But when you look at that game last night, you see Yanni Gourde not be able to score the puck. You not be able to shoot the puck into the net and score at the end of the game. And Nick Paul, when he should have stayed on the side of the crease, he goes to the goal mound at the top. Automatically, because we've been talking about him so long, I'm thinking Isaac Howard. If he's there, he scores that goal. Those are the little things. Those are the instincts that a player like Isaac Howard has. You see it with Gensel, you see it with Kucherov, you see it with Point. At times you see it with Hagel and Cirelli, but this guy, he's a top 6 forward that will be a top 6 forward moving, I think as we get closer and closer to, as we get into his career. But this year, having a guy like that on the third line that can be a guy that you pull off the bench when you pull the goalie. I think it's paramount to get him in the lineup. I think it's so important to have him with this team because of a game like last night. So I am concerned about that. That's, part of the big reason why I think they need home ice advantage, at least early on. We say that you shouldn't count on them flipping the switch, but at times we do see that in the postseason where the switch does get flipped. You do see a team that's completely different in the regular season and the playoffs. You can't bank on that. You can't count on that. It just happens. So hopefully their lack of scoring, the secondary scoring on the road, maybe they kind of figure that out in the first round of the playoffs, and then it carries them through the postseason. That's what you can hope. That's why you have your fingers crossed when you're talking about this Lightning team. But I think defensively and with the goaltending, it doesn't worry me as much. It's the secondary scoring. We're going to talk about this even more in a little bit. But I do get concerned when it comes to a game like last night. It's one thing if you lay an egg. It's one thing if you lose a game where the other team just played better. We've had too many games this year where the Lightning battle back, and they don't find a way to win. Remember the Tampa Bay findaways from a couple of years ago? I don't see that as much this year. You have to almost show glimpses of that in the regular season in order to do that in the playoffs. We saw that when they won the cups. We didn't have many discussions of, oh, well, they gave it the good old college try. Remember what I said the other day about moral victories and silver linings, and for certain teams, it's good. I don't have that same kind of thought process, that same mentality towards the Lightning. You can talk about process over result. I understand that. I understand that's a foundation of your team. But I don't look at the moral victories and the silver linings the same with the Lightning, because the bar is set as high as it can go. The bar is set higher than the Rays. It's set higher than the Buccaneers. It's set higher than any other team we have here in the Tampa Bay area, maybe outside of UT baseball. It's championship or bust for me. And when you set the goal that high, I don't look at moral victories and I don't look at silver linings as something that's acceptable. Last night, you played much better than the Ottawa Senators. You got to win that game. I don't care about Linus Ullmark. We've had so many look at how many memes you see last night of when the Bolts don't win, and it's like, oh, every goalie turns into Martin Brodeur or Patrick Waugh or Carey Price when they play the Lightning. Like, that's what other teams say about the Bolts. That's not what a team that has Stanley Cup aspirations should be saying. You should be good enough to be able to score and beat a team when a goalie plays like that. You know what you do? You score maybe 1 or 2, and then you tie the game up late in regulation. You find a way to get in there and do some damage and then take it to overtime. You got to at the very least, get a point last night. To not get one, I was very disappointed. And you guys know me. I am not a person that's going to freak out. Just, oh, they lost, all these things. Hold on. I just want to reaching out to Coach Mo real quick. He's supposed to join us at 12:10. See if we can get him in there. I don't look at this team like many other people do. Because I follow it so closely and I get emotional about it, just like last year when they weren't playing all that well. And, I said Mikhail Sergachev is here, and Ryan, that's part of the reason why Ryan McDonough isn't. And then now you kind of look at the difference here in 2025. Look at who's here and look who's not. I know when I post what I posted last night about being way more upset than I should be, some people came back to me and commented with, well, the effort's not there. I couldn't disagree with you more. I don't question the effort of the Tampa Bay Lightning. I don't question the coaching. It all comes down to execution. You just have to go out there and put the puck in the back of the net. It's that simple. People try to make too much of it. And I don't see this guy trying. I don't see this guy hustling. You're going to see that whether you want to admit it or not, because that kind of fits your narrative. It's almost like Ian brought this up there in the Beckles and Recher podcast the other day. You can check that out on my YouTube channel. When you are rooting for one boxer, you're only looking at that guy, or one MMA guy. You're not necessarily looking at the other guy. It's how you're viewing it. You're only looking at one side. And if you watch a combat sport, test that out. Test that theory out. If you want a guy to win, or you're watching for one guy, are you looking just at that one guy, or you're looking at the whole thing? Because that perception sometimes isn't always the reality. I don't look at this Lightning team and go, not hustling, not trying. They don't care. I couldn't disagree with that more. They are trying. They're giving it everything they have. They're just not executing. And it's just that simple. It really is. But it's part of the reason why I was concerned before the trade deadline, and why I do think they need more scoring punch in the bottom six, whether that's bringing up Connor Geekie, whether that's signing Isaac Howard. They need more. They need more punch. They need guys that can put the puck in the back of the net. And if we're banking on Yanni Gourde to do that, like, that's not the reason why you brought him here. Remember, a couple years ago, Yanni went 50-plus games without scoring a goal. If Yanni's a third line, fourth line guy, I don't think that's wrong at all. But you need a guy that can score. You need a guy that's going to be able to put the puck in the back of the net. And you missed it last night. So when I look at what Isaac Howard can bring to the table, what maybe even like a Connor Geekie, who seems to be playing really well, that's the difference between winning and losing a series sometimes. I don't look at it as a lack of effort. I don't look at it, and don't people are going to say, well, look at Cooch. He's only skating half speed. Bro. Really? When do you see Nikita Kucherov skating full speed? This is the thing he gets lauded for by other players in the NHL. Like, you can't play well if you're Nathan McKinnon or Connor McDavid if you're not skating 100 miles an hour. Nikita Kucherov does things at his own pace, at his own speed. I'm not worried about that aspect of it. You gotta be more talent. You gotta have more talent. Thank you, Lady Evil. You are the best. Thank you so much. Happy Friday to you too. Every single one of these super chats, man, where you guys are contributing, I can't thank you enough. You guys are the best. This is what's going to keep me going, man. The $5, if you could spare $5 a show, a week, a month, whatever, the more money I can get in the bank, the guarantee that this thing keeps on going. I have a couple partnerships in the works, man. 3 months plus down for the Jay Recher podcast, and I couldn't do it without you guys. Thank you so much for all the super chats so far, including Lady Evil, Craig Kurtzman, and David Terry. You guys are the best. Thank you so much. But you guys are getting what I'm saying, right? You understand what I'm saying of, like, we should have a higher expectation of this Tampa Bay Lightning team. We shouldn't be looking at this process and go, well, the other goaltender's good. You're winning the goaltending matchup pretty much every night with Andrei Vasilevsky back there. Ottawa didn't go into that game, well, we're not going to play well, we're going to lose because it's Vasilevsky versus Ullmark. No, find a way. Find a way to be able to score those goals. Whether it's on the power play, whether it's 5-on-5, I don't care who it is. Bjorkstrand, Gourde, even if it's the top line, even if Gensel's got to score more or Pointer's got to score more. That's the difference. The margins are so fine when you get to the postseason. Everybody, for the most part, is going to have a good goalie. Everybody, for the most part, is going to have a top-tier scorer like you. So, I don't question the effort one bit. I'm not too concerned overall about the hustle, the lack of energy or emotion. I mean, you look at the stats last night. Look at how many shots. I even tried to look and dive deeper of, who had shots, who didn't have shots. But really, I mean, that's not something I can look at. It really isn't. Dave Velasquez, best teams find a way to win games like that. Thank you, David. That's what it's all about. The best teams, and I want you guys to focus on what David said here, right here. The best teams, not the good teams, the best teams. That is where you're comparing yourself to. When you're this team right here, okay? When you're this team right here, got lightning stuff everywhere here. When you're this team right here, you have to hold yourself to a higher standard. You have to put yourself in a position where you're fighting for championships. The window that this team has to win the Stanley Cup is still wide open. Still wide open. You have Vazzy, you have Hedman, you have Cooch, Point, and Gensel. You've got good players at the top of the list. Julian did what he had to do to fortify this roster and help the middle six with the acquisition of Bjorkstrand and with the acquisition of Yanni Gourde. I still think they do need a couple of guys, one or two. but you need firepower. You need contributions from everybody. There's got to be a dig deep type of mentality where last night it's not okay to lose a game like that. That's the game that you got to win. That's the game that you prove to yourself, hey, when everything, that's what's going to happen. I remember, and I know it's completely different, but I remember when I was coaching years ago and we were doing a drill with some of the kids. We were about to go and play in the Pony World Series. And first we had to go to the South Regional and we had to go to Texas. And we did this game where like you hit a bunch of line drives. And if you hit a line drive in the batting cage, you stayed in the cage. If you didn't hit a line drive, then you were out. And if your team hit 3 line drives in a row, you can get a guy back, almost like a dodgeball type of thing. And we got down to the very end, and you had the whole bucket of baseballs to be able to do it. If you went through your entire bucket and you had at least one man left standing, you won. If you lost, you had to do 50 push-ups, 50 sit-ups, and 5 laps around the facility or something like that. So we get down to the end. We had 5 balls left, and the guys were jacked up. There was 2 players left, Colton Beerley and Lou Estevez. And I go up, and in my mind, I say, all right, I'm going to mess with them. Here we go. Throw a ball to Lou, line drive. I said, nope, wasn't a line drive. You're out. And the player started freaking out. Next guy up, Colton's left. He's the last guy. There's 4 baseballs left in the bucket. I toss him the ball, line drive. You're good. All right, 3 more. Toss him another ball, line drive. All right, you're good. Toss him another ball. All right, line drive, you're good. Last pitch, last ball in the bucket. If he hits this for a line drive, he wins. If not, they lose. I toss him the ball. He hits a line drive. They celebrate. And I say, no, not a line drive. Not good enough. That would have been a routine ground ball. And they were pissed. They lost their mind. They were staring daggers through me. Coach, how the hell could you do that? Blah, blah, blah. They were not happy. Not at all. And then I tell them, all right, let's go. Push-ups, sit-ups. Ready, go. They got 5 push-ups into it. I say, everybody stop. Sit up. Everybody sits. They are pissed. They're heated. They're looking at me. And I go, this is what's going to happen. You're going to get into a situation like this in Texas where everybody here knows that it was a ball or a strike or a safe and out. How are you going to deal with it? How are you going to respond? It's not about what happens to you. It's about how you respond to what happens to you. And then you start seeing light bulbs go off. And you see guys start going, oh, I get it. Some guys are still pissed. And we keep talking. You can't let other people's actions, you can't let other emotions, you can't let other teams' stellar play prevent you from finding a way to win, from staying mentally focused, from not getting frustrated, from doing something that's outside of the realm of you as an athlete, getting you out of your headspace. You got to make sure that you dial in and you continue to battle and continue to fight till the very end. But you got to make it so that it's damn near impossible for somebody else to be victorious against you. And by the end of that discussion, everybody's light bulbs went off and they got it. I said, all right, you're good. Pick up the balls. You guys win. That's fine. That's the type of mindset that the Lightning need to have and they need to build. They need to get into a situation where, like those kids that day, they were so pissed. And that I see that with the Lightning right now. They get to the end of these games and it's just like, all right, we're throwing everything at the net. And the narrative after the fact is, well, the goalie stole the game. That can't be. That can't be okay. They can't get to that spot. They have to be in a position where, gosh darn it, man, I don't care who's the goalie. You could have 2 guys in there. You could have Terry Sawchuk and Jacques Plante and Query Price and Henrik Lundqvist, everybody in there at the same time. I don't care if we have to throw the puck in with our bare hand. I don't care if we have to barrel in there and drop kick the damn guy. We're going to find a way to score. That is what this Lightning team is missing. When everything is going well, when they're at home and they're scoring goals after goals after goals, 7, and I told you guys this a week or 2 ago, those blowout victories don't tell me anything about this team. Nothing. I don't look at those games and go, all right, that's what the Lightning are all about. I learn a lot more about what I saw last night in Ottawa than I do into, a blowout wins over Utah in Sergei's return. I don't learn much from that. I don't learn much from games where you're in control the entire time. maybe playing a full 60 minutes, that's a check. That's what you want to see. That's a step in the right direction. But the one thing I want to see from this Lightning team down the stretch, I don't really care if it's home. I don't care if it's on the road. I mean, better on the road, right? But I want to see a game where they fire 35 shots on a goaltender and they're down 2-1 in the third period and they find a way to score a goal. A dirty, greasy rebound goal. It goes off a guy's hip pad. I don't really give a crap. They find a way to win. That is what they need to do. And I am telling you right now, if you are a fan, if you are a member of Bolts Nation, and you're looking down the stretch, hey, I'm a Bolts fan. What should I be keeping an eye on down the stretch? What part of this club should I be concerned about and noticing down the stretch? And again, you're going to get this from you're not going to get this type of analysis and this type of discussion in many other places, because you know what you're going to get. What did I tell you guys last week or 2 weeks ago? You want to know if somebody really knows what the hell they're talking about when it comes to sports? See if the only thing that they use are these three things. What are they? Stats, schedules, and standings. If that's the only way that you talk about the Tampa Bay Lightning, well, they did this, they scored this goal, and this goalie had a great night, and Kucherov has 100 and some odd points, and they're second in the division, and their schedule is they have this many home games and this many away games, and that is where the extent of the conversation goes. You know all you need to know. I gave you a little bit of a secret there to the secret to sports media. Same thing. So watch down the stretch. Look for a game like that. I don't know if tomorrow night's game is going to be like that, because I have no idea, because you're playing Buffalo, and Buffalo and Ottawa are those two teams. When you go on the road, you just don't know what kind of game you're going to get. You saw a 2-1 game last night against Ottawa. You know what you could see possibly tomorrow night against Buffalo? 6-5, 7-4. You have to be able to win a multitude of those games. You have to, any kind of game, wherever that fight goes, that's where you're going to be able to have to win. David Terry, bottom lines need more productivity. We need more Hagels and Cirellis. There's no lab where you create Brandon Hagels and Anthony Cirellis. You have to make sure that those guys are contributing. I need to see more from Oliver Bjorkstrand. I love the shot in the top of the slot where they're looking for him, but you brought this guy in to be an offensive contributor. I haven't seen enough. I haven't seen enough steady contribution from Oliver Bjorkstrand where I look at it and I go, that was a good deal. I'm not looking at Yanni Gourde and going, oh, wow, I'm judging him based on what his offensive productivity is. Oliver Bjorkstrand, on the other hand, I am looking at that. And looking at what he's been able to do since he's been acquired by the Tampa Bay Lightning. I mean, he scored 2 against Utah in the 8-0 win, which is good. 1 goal in the game against the Islanders, but 4 goals so far in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 14 games, 4 goals in 14 games. Only given us 2 assists, so 6 points in those games. A lot of minuses there. I need to see more. And it's about shots. Set him up, put him in a position to succeed. Put him in a position where he's firing a bunch of shots on net. I don't know. Okay. So there it is. There it is. Craig, I want to get to this too. Can we also get a Florida Southern half of the show beat UT last week, 2 out of 3 at historic Henley Field? Go Mocs. Yes. I said this the other day, and I will listen. If you want to clip this, Craig, and you want to tag Florida Southern, I would love that. We are going to start doing some unboxing like we did yesterday with the Tampa Bay Rowdies. I know the Steinbrenner High baseball team is sending me something next week. Here's the box from the Rowdies from yesterday. The unboxing stuff is really all the rage when it comes to sports now. We see you see it with sports cards, right? And you see it with head coach John Gruden getting from NFL teams and college teams all around the country. I want to do that here on the program. I want to be the unboxer of the teams here in the Tampa Bay area, maybe even the whole Sunshine State. So if you know somebody or you are involved with a high school team or a travel ball team, send me a box, man. Send me a box. And if you want to send it to me, you can message me on social media at J Recher. Again, Steinbrenner Baseball. They're going to be probably the second team after the Rowdies, and we will unbox them here on the program. But shout out to Florida Southern. I was actually supposed to do something. I'm glad you brought this up, Craig, because I was supposed to do something for UT and Florida Southern last week. I was supposed to do kind of like a video interview. It was actually for the University of Tampa, but it was to talk about their rivalry. But the schedules between me and the guy that was doing it, we just couldn't get on the same page. I had to cancel one time. I was doing something with the Lightning. And then he had to cancel on me because he was actually shadowing some of the guys with the Lightning. So man, I did so much homework too, Craig. So much homework on Florida Southern and UT and the rivalry. And I was just so upset that we weren't able to make that happen. But yeah, shout out to the Mocs, man. They haven't won a national championship in a while, but you want to talk about a historic program at the Division II level. That team out there in Lakeland is incredible. I didn't know as much of their history as I probably should have, but after doing my research, I could not show more love to the Mocs. And for them to beat UT, the number one team in the country at the time, 2 out of 3, that is a big deal. You were looking at a top 25 matchup anyway, but to see what they were able to do, I was thoroughly impressed, keeping a close eye on what they were doing there as they beat UT. And we look at those rankings. Looking at it right now. Why is this taking so long? This should be a lot easier. Regional polls. Come on now. I want to make sure that you guys get the proper love. Tampa still 1. Florida Southern up to 6. They were 13th last week. Now up to 6th after taking 2 of 3 against UT. How about that? That's big time, man. Florida Southern 6th, UT 1st, 13th first place ranking. They're 25-6 are the Spartans. Mocs 24-7. Good for them. Looking at the softball side. I mean, no, it's just something totally different. Okay. Really cool, though, man. Really, really good stuff there. I always love to see how good those teams are. Let's go on. I want to show some love to softball as well. Rankings. These teams make it so hard. Make it so difficult. Regional MCQ, which is softball. Come on. UT, number 1, 32-1. So shout out to UT, number 1 in baseball and softball. That's amazing. It really is. But shout out to Florida Southern, 2 of 3. That's a big victory in that rivalry. If you ever get a chance to go watch those games, there is so much energy at those stadiums when you're there in the stands, and there's just a lot of good baseball. And one thing that I was going to say, Craig, when I was getting interviewed is some people out there may look at Division II baseball and say, it doesn't really work. And they almost look down their noses at it, excuse me. Not when you're talking about Florida Southern and the University of Tampa. They know if you go and play for either one of those teams, like you're legit. And if you play pro ball, nobody's going to bat an eye at it. Nobody's going to say, oh, you only played D2. Nah, that ain't happening. 2 quick things real quick before we get to our guy, Luke Easterling. A great story written by Harmon Dale of The Athletic, the most underrated defenseman in the National Hockey League. Ryan McDonough on that list, Tampa Bay Lightning. You could see the difference, and he brought up a great point. As much as we talk about what the acquisition of, or the reacquisition of Ryan McDonough has done for the Bolts, look at what it has done to the Nashville Predators. And I have my prediction sheet here. I don't know if we should look at it or not, but I had Nashville going to the freaking Stanley Cup final. But we didn't really take, and myself included, didn't really take into consideration what losing Ryan McDonough was going to do. I mean, my goodness, it has been horrible for them. And even though they went out and got Jonathan Marchessault and Steven Stamkos and Brady Shea, it has been an absolute dumpster fire there for the Preds, and they'll be on the outside looking in when it comes to the postseason, which is very, very weird because I wasn't the only one. I still got Zach on here too. He had them as a wild card team, and I know a lot of other people out there thought the same. Let's bring him in, talk some Buccaneer football and all things NFL. It's our pal Luke Easterling from Athlon Sports. What's going on, brother? How are you?
I'm doing great, Jay. How are you, man?
I'm doing well, man. This is one of my favorite parts of the year here in March when playoff hockey's right around. Well, it's April now. Jeez, I mean, the March Madness. March. It's still March Madness to me. Damn it. Still real to me. Damn it.
What a great clip.
Yeah, it's such a great clip, right?
Iconic.
It is. I love my under the radar wrestling references because I feel like if my sports brethren that are understanding of the wrestling references, I feel like just gives us another notch over other people.
Yeah, that's one of those things that, like, if you say it to somebody, they either know it or they have no clue what you're talking about. And you either, like, you get it and you're like, yes, you're my kind of guy, or they're just like, never mind, move on.
It's funny because I met Pat McAfee years ago. And one of the things I asked him is like, what do you do when it comes to wrestling? Like, how do you, because some people, we're in Tampa. And he said that. He goes, Jay, you're in Tampa. He's like, you're in one of the hubs, like wrestling hub. He goes, yep. There's no gray area when it comes to wrestling. You either get it, you probably love it, or you don't get it at all. And that's my mom and dad to a nutshell. Like my mom, she's into soap operas, so she gets it. She doesn't like watch it, but she gets it. My dad doesn't get it at all. I don't know where I got my love of wrestling, but that's what it is.
And that's the thing, like itself as a sport. Like I love that clip because like just that golden age of YouTube, right? Where it's just like those things that stick forever. Like I never got wrestling like the people who really get it, like love it. But like what I do understand is when you love something, you just love it and it's okay to just have fun. So like, I think the people that take it too seriously, like, whatever criticisms you have of it, like guys, there's plenty of things in this world to take seriously. Professional wrestling is not one of them. Let people enjoy what they enjoy and have fun. And so whatever. I don't need to like get deep into it to understand why people enjoy it. And it's just fun. Let people have fun, man.
Yeah, exactly. I have that conversation with people. I'm like, you don't like wrestling? You think it's stupid? Okay. Like, you like Game of Thrones? I love Game of Thrones. I'm like, the dragons aren't real. The dragons aren't real. And they're like, that's a good point. And I go, yeah, there you go. Monday Night Raw coming up. All right, let's talk some football, man. I mean, big takeaways. I mean, looking at the NFL meetings with Jason Light and Todd Bowles, hearing what those guys had to say about, I want to ask you about 19, that position. From what we've heard from Jason, what we've heard from Todd, where do you think they're leaning, man? If they had their druthers, Luke, if they had an opportunity, and I'm just going to put guys out there, if you have a corner out there, whether it's Barron or Johnson, whether you have an inside linebacker like Jahad Campbell, let's say you have your pick of Ezeraku or maybe one of the other pass rushers, where do you think the Bucs go at 19?
So, positionally, I always prioritize this, from the trenches out. So For me, even though, I mean, really the outside linebacker group is fairly set on paper right now. I think the bottom, the young depth is coming along again. Anthony Nelson's back on a 2-year deal. You're hoping Chris Braswell takes that next step. You brought in Hassan Reddick as that kind of splash signing to be like, okay, we need somebody who knows how to get to the quarterback who we don't have to develop. We need somebody who's going to be able to make an impact week 1 and on. And so, and Yaya's obviously, expected to start on the other side. But I don't think any of that keeps them from taking the right edge at 19 if he's there. And mostly because Hassan Reddick's on a 1-year deal. And so while he helps now, you can never, ever have too many pass rushers. The Bucs knew that in 2020. The Eagles proved it again last year. If you can have waves of those guys, interior or on the edge, you're gonna be able to be dominant on defense. And so while you can have the kind of chicken or the egg conversation about the defense, is it coverage, is it pass rush? I will always err on the pass rush side first. And so you talk about a guy like Ezeraku. I'm really hoping he's there at 19. The closer we get to the draft, I just saw my friend Jordan Reed from ESPN put something out this morning that he's looking like a maybe top 15 guy right now based on what he's hearing around the league. And I'm so pissed, right? Because I'm like, man, that's my guy. Highly productive, great athlete, showed it at the combine. The film is so great. The technique is polished. Like he's got a plan. Like he knows what he's doing. Isn't going to come in and be super raw and need to like figure out how to use his pass rush moves. He knows what he's doing. And so that's why I got really excited about him at 19. Don't know if he's going to be there now. But I've got like 7 edge guys that I feel like are first round locks, which is just insane, right? I mean, that's just You've got, I mean, and I count Jalen Walker from Georgia as an edge, but you've got Abdul Carter, you got Jalen Walker, Michael Williams, the other Georgia guy. Ezeraku right now is the 4th ranked edge guy in this draft for me. But you've got Shamar Stewart from Texas A&M, you've got Mike Green from Marshall, you got James Pierce Jr. from Tennessee. I think all those guys have a really good shot to go in the first round. And so while the depth is there, I feel like if the Bucks don't get their guy at 19, I feel like there's going to be a run that they're going to miss, that next tier before they come up in the mid-second. So Ezeraku would be really my top priority. After that, though, Will Johnson is a top 10 prospect in this draft for me. So it's hard for me to imagine him being on the board at 19. But if he is, man, I'm all about that. Everybody go back to the.
How does that happen, Luke? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, it's fine.
I feel like you get in a situation where you fall in love with Jackson Dart. You fall in love with, Hampton as the running back. Like you start getting these teams that fall in love with the skill players again. And then I go, all right, well, does Will Johnson fall? Does the Shador fall? And then people just start losing their mind a little bit. And then it's like, oh, wow, you get to 17 and you're like, Johnson's there, Ezeraku's there, Jihad Campbell's there. I feel like the Bucks could be that team where they're not too far down. They're not in the mid-20s where if people start, drafting these guys based on what they did at the combine with the cutoff, right? Like, I feel like that could bode well. Do you agree with that? Like, if we start seeing some craziness, the Bucks are one of those teams that could really benefit from that.
It is, and I do this when I do these mock drafts that I do every week at Athlon, where they're 4 rounds long, and so I get to the end of every round, and I'm like, how the hell did I not have this guy in the first or this guy in the second? Because I always say this is the time of year where everybody's like, these 50 guys aren't getting out of the first round, and I'm like, guys, there's only 32 picks. That's just somebody can't go. Like that's just the way it is, and so the same thing is true for the Bucks at 19, where it's just like, oh, this guy will never be there, and that guy will never be there. And eventually, when you have 20 guys who aren't going to be there at 19, somebody is. And so when you see particularly guys like Jackson Dart moving up the board and getting that buzz, anybody the Bucks don't need going ahead of them is a good thing, right? And so I think, honestly, it kind of happened with the Bucks last year at 25. They sat there and got, Graham Barton fell right into their laps, and I think they were thrilled about that because I think they were not planning on him being there. And so at 19, you talk about Will Johnson again. How does it happen from a player standpoint? He was banged up last year. We didn't get to see the best of him last year, but go back to the 2023 film. Go back and look at the film early last season. 6'2", 200 plus. He's got the length, great instincts, ball skills. If I had one thing that I wish he did better, I wish he was tougher against the run. I'm just a sucker for a corner who's willing to, growing up watching the Rondé Barbers of the world and watching those tough, hard-nosed corners. I wish he was a little bit tougher as a run stuffer, but in today's NFL, man, you've got to be able to cover as a boundary corner and do that first at a high level, and everything else kind of comes afterwards. I think he does that. He's a big play guy, great ball skills. And so, could he slip because he was banged up this year and people didn't get to see the best of him? I think they're going to overthink him to a certain extent, and he could be on the board there. I think I've got him going now in the 15 range. I could see him going as high as 6. I think he'd be such a perfect fit for Pete Carroll in that defense. I don't know if he goes that high, but I would consider him there. Jihad Campbell is an interesting one to me because he's clearly the top off-ball linebacker, that inside linebacker role in this draft. I think he's a perfect fit for Todd Bowles' defense with his ability to cover, play the run. He's a great blitzer, whether he's coming off the edge. He can line up on the edge and just rush the passer as an edge guy, but he's such a good blitzer. Big thing with him, man. Great athlete. But I don't know when he's going to be ready. He just had shoulder surgery after the combine to repair a torn labrum. He wasn't able to work out at the Alabama Pro Day. Obviously, he was in a sling. And so if you're looking at, a months-long recovery, you're talking about missing OTAs. You're talking about missing all those installs, missing some of training camp maybe. I don't even know if week 1, depending on the recovery, would be in the cards. And so that a long-term, obviously, he's a great play. But for a team that really needs to upgrade that position immediately, I don't know how much that would play into the conversation. Obviously, the Bucs team doctors would have a say in that probably, but that's the big concern with Campbell. As a player, I love him, love the fit for the Bucs, but the injury would be concerning at least right away.
Yeah, especially with Servassier Dennis, right? You need some kind of stability there of like, do we really want to go down the road of this guy of
another, off-ball linebacker that we have injury concerns about.
A shoulder surgery too. It's the same, like a similar injury. It's the same body part.
It's like that Spider-Man meme, right? Like they're shooting the webs at each other. Yeah,
Yep.
I feel like the Bucs need a Will Johnson, Laramie Tunsil type of him smoking out of a bong or something like that from the fall of 19. He's that damn good. When you look at this offense and you look at the wide receiver position, I know some people are looking at, all right, can you get another wide receiver? At what round would you look at a receiver for the Buccaneers? Because as much I think they're going to ease Chris Godwin in, and this is why I think for him, I think it makes so much sense for the return to the Buccaneers, because if you go to New England, you go to Jacksonville, there's going to be pressure for you to be ready week one. People are going to want you to be wide receiver one week one and be that guy that you were last year. I don't know if that's realistic. He can stay here. Nobody's going to lose. If Godwin after 4 weeks has like 15 catches and just like 180 yards and 1 touchdown, people are going to be like, oh man, we shouldn't have signed Chris. It's like, hey, he's coming back from an injury. We got Mike, we got J-Mac.
Right. Down here, nobody's going to panic. Like
nobody's going to panic. But with that being said, does that go into the thought process, right? Because Mike isn't getting any younger, right? We don't know what the deal is with Trey Palmer. We know that's a position that just you deal with a hamstring injury. The guy's out for 2.5 weeks. Like that just happens with guys that run. What do you think is the round that we could see the Bucs if they go receiver? Is it more towards the beginning half of the draft or the back half of the draft?
Yeah, I think easily the back half of the draft makes the most sense. I think the 4th round might be the sweet spot in terms of value on the board, and also like if they come out of the first 3 rounds with an edge and a linebacker and a corner or a safety, like if they hit those big defensive needs early, I think they'll feel more comfortable taking a receiver in that 4th round range. The big caveat I would say to that is if the right guy falls at 19, that's the conversation you have to have, because I can see the board. Again, I've done so many of these mocks and so many of these scenarios where like you get kind of an idea of the flow of certain scenarios where it's like, man, there's so many times where the Bucs are there at 19 and there's not a corner I'm super thrilled with. There's not an edge I'm super thrilled with. There's not, the 2 safeties are off the board, the top 2 safeties. There's nobody, Jahad Campbell's gone. There's nobody that really fills one of those immediate needs that I think is worthy of a top 20 pick. And so obviously in those scenarios, your first thing is, can I move down? But you have to have somebody to trade down with. And if there's nobody you're thrilled about, chances are they're probably not going to be anybody else is thrilled about, unless the position needs are super different. And so if we're having a conversation about, listen, there's just no top 20 talent on the board. And I mean, does Tet McMillan get to 19? That's a no-brainer to me. Like that's easy. That's a layup to me. And everybody be like, oh, we need so many other things. Again, like you said, Mike is going to be a 1 to 2 year rental at this point in his career. And go back and look at the transition the Bucs got to have from Vincent Jackson to Mike Evans, and the similar body types, the similar skill sets, the ability to kind of transition into that big physical, dominant receiver that he was. And now you're going to plug in another 6'5", 215 plus pound guy where he can, the skill sets are a little bit different. He's not quite as big and physical as Mike was coming out. He's honestly a little bit better of a route runner right now than Mike was coming out of Texas A&M. Mike developed that over his career, but Tet's a little further ahead.
Is that fair though? Is that fair with Johnny Manziel as your quarterback and your routes and the route trees at Texas A&M were it looked like a little kid.
That's what I mean too. Is like I remember scouting him and being like, oh, his route tree isn't terribly defined. But like, this is one of those guys that teaches you not to care about that as you move forward.
He had the
like,
tree of
maybe
life.
I don't need to care about that quite as much.
He had the tree of life as his route tree.
Yeah, he just do whatever it takes. So, and the other guy I would mention is Emeka Egbuka, because I just think that if you made a list of the football players in this draft where you were like the most confident they're just not going to suck at all, Egbuka is very high on that list. I think he would have been a first-round pick last year, but he and a bunch of other Buckeyes were super pissed off at the way that season ended, and they came back and they won a national championship. And so he's got another year of experience. He is one of the most polished, sharp route runners. This is a guy you can plug into an NFL offense, and right away he's going to make a difference. He's fast. He gives me kind of Stephon Diggs, but like bigger vibes. And so I don't know. He's a guy that I think would be a dark horse just because the floor is so high, and I think he's got a good ceiling too. But McMillan is the kind of guy where, like, if we're talking, like, you look at even just the odds and the way the odds are moving, it's like maybe Matthew Golden from Texas is the first receiver off the board, which is a little wild to me. But if McMillan gets to 19, and especially if the board on defense doesn't look great, I've got no problems taking him as the Mike Evans protege, and then you're set there. You deal with your defensive needs in the other rounds. I just wouldn't shock me, and the value would be unreal.
Before I let you go, I know you're on a tight time crunch, and I appreciate you joining me, buddy. Since the last time we spoke, a couple months ago, what are your thoughts on the top 5 picks of the draft? Because I think it's so fascinating to see, as a guy that grew up in the Big Apple, I don't know what the hell the Giants are doing. I really have no clue. And do you go Travis Hunter and say, all right, we're going to go with the vets here and maybe play for Arch next year? And and what do the Titans do? What do the Browns do? Or they say, all right, we'll go with that. Does Cleveland go, all right, we'll go Abdul Carter and Myles Garrett, and then we'll go from there? Like, what do you think the first 5 picks are going to look like now that we have a little bit more clarity when it comes to free agency?
Yeah, I mean, I think Cam Ward to the Titans feels pretty chalk right now. The closer we get, that seems to be the only thing that I think we're certain about. 2 and 3 are intriguing to me because, listen, Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, and Ashton Jeanty are the 3 truly elite players in this draft. I think they are in their own tier, and then everybody else, regardless of position, I think that's how my board would set up. And so if you're having a conversation between Shedeur Sanders, who I think is the biggest wild card as a prospect to the league, I don't feel that way about him. I think he's worth the number 2 or 3 overall pick because the position is too important, and because I think his floor is so high. I think mentally, physically, he's got enough tools. He's not quite on Cam Ward's level, but mentally, I feel like the ability to handle pressure both on and off the field, the ability to make solid decisions, the ability to handle no offensive line and just have to make stuff happen. I mean, he's not going to be shaken by really anything at the next level, and that appeals to me at that position. And so if you're the Browns and the Giants, you have this, do I take one of the truly elite players in this draft in Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter? I don't think Jeanty would be in the conversation there, or do I understand, and the Browns are a perfect example for this, because if any team knows how useless it is to have a Hall of Fame player at even another premium position, Joe Thomas for a decade, Myles Garrett for almost a decade now, it has not meant a damn thing to that franchise. They have not won anything with those 2 guys. And so while they're great to have, if you do not have a quarterback, it doesn't matter. Nothing else is going to matter. So I think Shedeur Sanders is he reminds me of Geno Smith over the last couple of years, the way how much good football he's played. I think he's been one of the most underrated quarterbacks in the league. And so while the physical tools don't jump off the table, I think he's easily an above average to good quarterback, and that is worthy of that pick to me. And I think it makes more of a difference to your team. So 2 and 3, he's got to be in that conversation. If they pass and they both go, Hunter and Carter in whatever order, I understand. But to your point about playing for Arch Manning has not proven anything to us that we haven't seen from Jalen Milroe last year. Really good runner, good arm strength. We have no idea what he can do as a full-time starter, reading defenses and genuinely being a franchise quarterback at that level. We have no clue yet. And so
where are you at on Milroe?
Huge fan, big boomer bust, but I'm on record as saying if I'm going to get fired for picking the wrong quarterback, give me the guy who has a chance to be something special, and I think that's Jalen Milroe. He's got a cannon for an arm, needs to figure out how to use it better, but 4.3 speed at 220 pounds. I feel like he's the guy that if I'm going to go down swinging, I'm going to go down with that guy. If you tell me I had to take Jackson Dart in the top 10 or I could get Jalen Milroe anytime on day 2, even early second round, give me Milroe all day long.
Who's the comp for Milroe? Is it Hurts?
Hurts, but faster.
Yeah.
Hurts, but maybe not quite as big. I can't remember what Hurts was coming out, but I mean, Hurts, but faster. That's the comp. And if you develop him, you give him patience and the right offense and things, I think he can get to be a special player. He's got Lamar Jackson, Jaden Daniels' ability as a runner. And again, the arm strength isn't a problem. Just got to harness it. He can make all the throws. He's just got to figure out how to use it properly. So Shedeur becomes the wild card there at 2 and 3. If he doesn't go 2 or 3, do the Raiders pick him up as the future beyond Geno Smith at 6? If that doesn't happen, how long does he wait before somebody maybe moves up? Got to get ahead of Pittsburgh, I would imagine. But 4 and 5, I think the Patriots are praying that he goes ahead of them. Because if he does, then that ensures that they get either Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter or either of which I think they'd be thrilled about. And then the Jaguars are interesting because I think for so long here, everybody, myself included, has had Mason Graham from Michigan, the defensive lineman, pegged in there. And while it's a solid pick and it fills a big need, this is the most loaded interior defensive line class I've seen in a long, long time. And I think they could be really confident that they could get a very similar player at, in the 30s. I think they're picking 36, 37 in the second round. And so I think there's not a huge gap between Mason Graham and the guy they can probably get there. The guy that I think would be really fun in Jacksonville, I've had him there in my last 2 mocks, is Tyler Warren, the tight end from Penn State. Because I think if you're Liam Cohen and you're like, man, we released Evan Ingram, we're going to have this opening in our offense now. What better way to help Trevor Lawrence out than to bring in a guy in Tyler Warren who's massive, athletic, physical. He can block in the run game. He can create so many matchup problems. I think that'd be a really, really fun pick for the Jags at 5 and be a really fun way to kind of turn the draft on its head early.
Or maybe Liam Cohen drafts Ashton Genty and has a Genty ETN type of Rashad White and Bucky Irvin backfield.
Hey, I tell you what, there's no running back on the Jaguars roster that should prevent them from taking Ashton Genty. I'll say that. Travis Etienne has been good, but banged up and fumbling. And Tank Bigsby has been really flashy at times, but really inconsistent. Again, one of the 3 truly elite players in this draft. If they took him at 5, wouldn't bat an eye whatsoever. He'd immediately be the best running back on that team.
ETN fumbles a lot. Luke Easterling does not. Athlon Sports at Luke Easterling. He's my brother's favorite mock drafter. He's his brother's favorite mock drafter. He's probably your brother's favorite mock drafter out there. Does a lot of great stuff. Luke, always a great time catching up with you, man. I know you're super busy. I appreciate it, buddy. Have a great weekend. Talk soon, buddy.
Hey, always a pleasure, Jay. Take care, my man.
You the man. Love the Easterling family, man. They are great. Luke is all over it. And again, you guys know me, not a big mock draft guy, but I love Luke's mock draft because there's no hidden narratives. It's exactly what he sees. It's exactly what he sees. He goes with it. It's not just 1 round, 2 round. He's got a 4-round mock draft. Go check it out now. And my brother, and the reason why I say my brother's favorite mock drafter is because a couple of years ago, my brother was like, he told me about 2 people, Luke Easterling and Trevor Sikkema. He had no idea that I knew either one of them. No idea that we've had any of them on the show. He's like, those are the 2 guys that I go to for my college football content. So there you go. And my brother's not the biggest college football guy. He pretends like he's an Oregon fan, from years ago. He's got probably a Michael James poster still in his bedroom, even though he's 31 years old. Marcus Mariota was his guy or whatever. But yeah, big Luke Easterling fan, big Trevor Sikkema fan. Listen, man, I mean, if you're going to be fans of 2 guys that know the ball, those are the 2 guys to know. So, yeah, check them out, Athlon Sports at Luke Easterling as well. Go check out that mock draft as well. I'd like to check all that stuff out. I can't wait for the draft. It's coming up. I'm excited to see what the Buccaneers do. 19 for the Buccaneers. Could they draft a wide receiver? I would love to see. I want a corner. I would love if Will Johnson was there. It just seems like that's just going to be too long to wait for a guy like that. He's so damn talented. He could be a top 10, top 15 guy. I wouldn't hate them trading down. And get an opportunity to get another second, get another third. Just think about it. If they're at 19, they can trade down to, let's say, 22 or 23. Ezra seems to be going up the boards, but there's other boards where I don't even see him in the first round. So let's say you could trade down to 25, right? Trade down to 25. You get an extra 3rd round pick. Then you get Ezra at 25 if he's there. And then you can get a linebacker like a Swishinger or Basser in the 2nd round. And then you can get 2 corners in the 3rd, right? There's possibilities out there after the 3rd or 4th round. You can hit corner, off-ball linebacker, and edge rusher. And then, maybe with that second, maybe you don't go back-to-back with the corner. Maybe you take those 3 guys and then you get a receiver, right? Or then you get a safety or something like that. Shout out to Jeff Taylor traveling to Jacksonville, working in the car, focusing on the podcast. Jay, love the show. Happy Friday all. I want to shout out our 3 contributors today for this. I'm going to show you guys the super chat crew. David Terry talking about Linus Omar, Craig Kurtzman, and Lady Evil. Those super chats, man, you are near and dear in my heart, and it helps me out a ton here on the program. I ain't gonna beg for any of the super chats, but I'm just going to tell you how much it helps. And that's why I say support local, myself included. We spoke about this yesterday with Eddie Encina and, of course, with Erik Erlendsson. You guys don't understand. I had this conversation today with my good friend over at the Rowdies about the local support and about how important it is. And you may not think it's a big deal, but it is, man. I am telling you, I try to support as much as I humanly much as humanly possible. That's why I'm not telling you guys to get subscription to things that I don't have. I have a subscription to Tampa Bay Times. I have a subscription to lightninginsider.com. Like, it's vital, man. It is important that you guys go out there and, it's not that expensive, man. It's not. And to be able to do that, you don't realize the kind of impact that you have, and it's sustainability. You want to sustain, the coverage that we have in the Tampa Bay area, and, you're not going to get, this isn't New York, this isn't LA, this isn't any of these other big markets. So, when we get together and we provide that coverage, like, every little bit helps. And now, as we bring Erik on in a second, we look like we're heading towards a matchup between the Lightning and the Panthers in the first round. And if that happens, that bodes well for us being able to cover, because we'll just hop in a car, be able to drive down there and cover them again. And we'll go to Bo Kemper's for dinner as well. Let's bring him in now. lightninginsider.com, Erik Erlendsson. We got Bo Kemper's in our future, it looks like, buddy.
We'll see. There's a lot to go. I mean, the Panthers still have to...
Look at you downplaying it. Come on.
Well, basically, I'm just sick of seeing the Panthers in the postseason. I mean, look, the Leafs still have to play Florida. They still have to go to Florida, right? The Leafs still have to play the Lightning. There's still some back-to-backs for both those teams left. I mean, anything can happen. I know last night was certainly disappointing. They didn't come away with 2 points, especially considering the chances they had and the way that they did play. But, there's still 8 games left. I mean, there's still time. There's only a 3-point gap, and there's a head-to-head. Obviously, if you lose those head-to-heads, it's a different story. But, in a lot of ways, the Lightning actually still control their own fate.
So somebody's asking, Benny is asking, can I get a double E's burger? So I guess, what is on a double E burger? If you could make your own burger for a restaurant, what would it be?
Yeesh.
It's a good one.
That's a good question. It would definitely have bacon on it.
Yeah, buddy.
Probably maybe some white American cheese.
Okay.
Maybe some mushrooms. It would depend.
Okay.
Barbecue sauce.
Right.
And some onion rings on it.
I like that.
Little Southwest burger.
I like it. Yeah. I don't like mushrooms, but I'll eat the rest of it. That's awesome. Talk me off the ledge, E. Talk me off the ledge. Out of the two of them, I'm pretty level-headed for the most part, but there's these times I don't know what it is. You can blame my parents. Yeah, blame my parents, the most level-headed people that we've ever met. I don't know where the up and down and the craziness from me and my brother come from, because my parents are the most level-headed people on the planet. But last night I was fuming after that game, because you hear about the process and the result, and I get that. But is there any concern at all that there's not, there's no concern? I'm not talking about the team not winning, but I'm just talking about the fact that they got to be able to win certain games like that. We've given flowers to the opposing goalies seemingly so much over these last 2 years. At some point, you got to win these games, right? I mean, and if you put up a stinker, if you lose a game where the team's better than you, I wouldn't get nearly upset. If they didn't play as well, Ottawa outplayed them, you tip your hat and you move on. But you outplayed them. It's Linus Ullmark, and I know he was an all-star a couple of years ago. Yeah, you got to win games like that every once in a while too. No, right? Talk me off the ledge, would you?
Well, first of all, they didn't turn Linus Ullmark into a Vezina winner last night. He actually is a Vezina winner. True. So, I mean, look, it's frustrating because of the chances you had. I mean, Yanni Gourde had a partial breakaway. Brandon Hagel had a breakaway. Sorelli had a 2-on-1. I mean, we're used to seeing them finish those opportunities, right? And they didn't last night. I mean, Ullmark came up with some saves. You're like, how in the hell? Not necessarily, as Chief says, oh, wow, saves, but really, he got that one? The chance Yanni Gourde had coming around the net on trying to sweep the backhander. And, they had some really good looks that just didn't go in for them. I guess the one thing to kind of maybe not completely talk you off the ledge is I think that's the 5th or 6th game they have lost 2-1 this year. And it's the one thing I kind of look at in the record. I think they're now 1-17-3 in games in which they failed to score more than 2 goals. Right. That's, low scoring games. But I mean, that number, I'm going to put an asterisk by that number, though, because
it's not great for everybody.
No, there's been a number of games where they've been ahead 2-0 late and they get an empty netter. right? So it becomes a 3-0 game. So they hit the 3 goals, or so empty netters kind of fall into that and skew that stat a little bit. But the only game they've won where they've scored fewer than 3 goals was the game against Philadelphia back on St. Patrick's Day, where Vazzy pitched the shutout and they won 2-0. So in that aspect, I understand what you're saying, but sometimes you get goalied, and everybody wants to try and say, well, if that happens in the playoffs, they're in trouble. Well, you give me that game on a consistent basis in a 7-game series, I don't think Linus Ullmark is going to come up with a game like that and keep them off the board. I just don't think it's happening. And like I say this every time this year, what you saw last night doesn't necessarily mean it's going to translate into, a playoff series. Right. Now, the one thing that was really frustrating beyond the scoring chances that didn't go in was their face-off performance in the third period. They were, I think, 2 for 13 on even strength face-offs in the third period. I think at one point they're down a goal. I think they lost 6 straight face-offs. I mean, that's the hard part to kind of swallow a little bit because you lose possession, right? You're trying to score a goal, and you're losing the puck. And a lot of those were offensive zone faceoffs. Ottawa iced the puck a number of times. So those were faceoffs that were coming back in the offensive zone, and they just couldn't win them. It didn't matter who they threw out. I mean, Luke Glendening had a good night in the circle. He threw him out there twice in the final minute or so. He lost both of them, right? It's just kind of, one of those things where they didn't bear down and get the faceoff when they really needed it, I think, until Nick Paul got one with about 30 seconds to go. So, but again, you give me the way they played in that game on a consistent basis, they're going to win more of those games than they're going to lose.
All right, kind of talked me off maybe a little bit. I'm still there. I think I'm still hanging out there. All right, let's get into the most important conversation that we're going to have, because this is just what it is. Ed and I spoke about this for like 8 minutes yesterday. It was such a long discussion, and it's the number one discussion now, because you look at Ryan Leonard with the Capitals now. You look at Yannick Perreault's his dad. Gabe Perreault getting his debut with the Rangers. You're looking at McCarr signing with the Avalanche. We've been speaking about this for the last 2 months, and I'm preface it the same way I did yesterday with Ed. This is not something that you and I and anybody else was just speculating. This is something that Julian spoke about himself during our fireside chats, because I know how it gets sometimes. You guys are pulling this out of your ass. You don't know what you're talking about. Like, this isn't something that we're just speculating on, and that's the reason why we keep bringing it up. Julian himself, who at times can keep things close to the vest and really, am I wrong for saying that? Like, I felt like he was a lot more communicative before we get into, everything. I felt like Julian was a lot more open about the Isaac Howard conversation during the fireside chats than I thought he was going to be. Do you agree with that sentiment?
Yeah, I mean, he spoke, about the improvements that Isaac has made this year. And look, he even brought up Connor Kurth, unprompted, because he happened to go see Minnesota, Michigan play right before we talked to him. Connor Kurth did sign a contract, right? He signed the 2-year contract that kicks in next year. He's in Syracuse on an ATO for the rest of the year. But yeah, I mean, I think a lot of that, though, comes down to the fact that, I mean, we know how valuable a prospect he is for them, right? Mm-hmm. We haven't talked about a Lightning prospect this much probably since Jonathan Drouin in 2013.
Right.
We didn't talk about Braden Point in this way. We didn't talk about Anthony Cirelli in this way. We knew that they were pretty good players, and Braden Point certainly opened eyes in training camp. And, all we've got a chance to look at with Isaac Howard is development camp in the summer. But I think he realizes how important of a prospect he is and why we're talking about him. And, the World Junior he had helping the USA win, not this year, but last year, especially his performance in the gold medal game. And then the type of season he had this year, right? He's a finalist, one of the 3 finalists for the Hobey Baker Award, which will be announced right before the Frozen Four next weekend. So I think with all that in mind, I think he understands that we understand how valuable of a player this is to their system. And it is very common in Isaac Howard's situation for players to come out after 3 years. It's just the way things work. When you're that high level of a prospect, you don't usually play 4 years in college.
Yeah, we're seeing that across all the collegiate sports now, where guys are coming out early if they're that good, and you're very, very rare that you see guys stay all 4 years. But as I alluded to, we're seeing these other guys, they're signing, they're already playing games. we're at a position now with Isaac Howard where, you know, we understand what the salary cap ramifications are. If there's any team that could figure out a way to make this happen, it's the Tampa Bay Lightning. I'm sure Julian and his crew are crunching the numbers as we speak. What are your thoughts on the entire process so far? What we have heard, what we haven't heard, what the Lightning would have to do to make this work, and if you think we'll see him with the club, whether it's in the regular season or the playoffs this year.
Well, I'm sure I'm going to echo a lot of what Ed said yesterday, but I haven't listened to it.
Thanks,
I mean, if it wasn't, sorry,
it's okay. You're a busy guy.
If it wasn't for the salary cap situation, he'd be here already. I mean, it's just the way. That's how simple this process is. If it wasn't for the constraints that the team has, he'd be here already. And it's not as simple as has been suggested. Well, just set and reassign Cam Atkinson to Syracuse and open up a space. I think they need more than that.
Yeah.
Right. Because with these entry-level contracts, you have to account for the bonus structure. Obviously, he probably would not attain whatever bonuses would be in it. I mean, usually they're goals and, you know, are you a Calder candidate, everything like that. But you have to account for them. And if they don't hit it, it doesn't count against your cap. But you have to account for it until they don't hit the bonuses, right? So there's a lot more room than just the $850 or $875 or whatever that Cam Atkinson is making. You know, that only gives you about $900,000 in available cap space, and that's not enough. So it would have to require more than one roster move. And as we know, the salary cap is a daily thing. You throw whatever pennies you have into the jar and see how fast it fills up until you get to the end of the season. So there are scenarios in which, you know, a couple of days before the end of the year, you could see this done. So I am curious to see how things go here before we get to that point, because Syracuse's season ends about the same. You know, could you sign him to that contract and assign him to Syracuse, let him play a couple of games there and then bring him up and maybe let him play in, you know, one of the last couple of games? I could see that scenario.
So that's a possibility then. So that's a possibility. But they'd have to sign him. So they could sign him to an entry-level contract, but it won't count against the cap, or it will count against the cap?
If he's assigned to Syracuse, it does not.
Okay, so do you think that's the most likely route then?
If I'm Isaac Howard, I'm not going to Syracuse. That's my thought process on it. Because
now, to those people that want to know, and it may sound like a stupid question, but why? Why are you at this position now where you are saying it's lightning or bust pretty much right now?
Well, he has the leverage in a lot of ways because he has that final year of college eligibility. And again, look, as far as I understand it, there's no breakdown in talks. There's no right. The two sides are very open to a deal getting done, and the desire, if you're Isaac Howard's agent here, is to get the contract done before the end of the regular season and find a way to burn year one of entry-level contract, because that accelerates your path to restricted free agency and unrestricted free agency, right? That's always the situation in these contracts. So if I'm Howard here, like I want that. Well, first of all, NHL money is a lot better than AHL money. I can tell you that. You know, so that means something. And you get that first year burned by being on an NHL roster. So if I'm Howard, I have the leverage here. I don't want to go to the AHL. I want to be in the NHL, and he has that leverage. It's negotiating leverage is what it comes down to. He could always say, I'm going to go back to college for a fourth year, and then things start to get a little hairy. You don't want that to be the case, right? You don't want to flirt with the possibility of losing a prospect of that, you know, for nothing. So, and to me, if I'm Isaac Howard and I'm his representative, that's my thought process on this.
Does he lose that? Does he burn that year of eligibility, or does he burn that year on the ELC if he joins the team just for the postseason?
It's a good question, because technically players don't get paid. During the playoffs, they get pooled. You know, there's playoff pool money, and depending on how far you get, there's.
But you wouldn't want that though if you were the Lightning or Isaac Howard to just join the team in the postseason, right?
Well, I mean, there's a benefit to being around.
Yeah.
You know, to being around the team. And,
well, I'm saying if he's going to play, like if he's just a part of the Black Aces and is with the guys, that's one thing. But I just have a feeling like If he's going to be with the team, they're going to want him to play on the team, and he would probably want to be with the team, right?
Yeah, I don't know if they'd throw him into a playoff game
without regular season playing.
Just in general, without some sort of, feel for it, right? Like he's making the jump from college to the NHL is not what it used to be. It used to be a bigger jump. It's not as big of a jump. A lot of these guys come in prepared. I mean, look at Cale Makar. He jumped from college right into the Colorado lineup for the
Matthew
playoffs.
Nyes did it. Yeah.
I think Makar score a goal in his NHL debut, which was in the playoffs. So, I mean, these guys are certainly more poised and polished and are used to the spotlight than maybe they have been in years past, especially with the World Juniors and everything. But, just knowing the Lightning and the way they work, I don't know if they would want that to be the case. I'm not saying it can't be and it won't be. And just given their history of how they deal with these type of players and situations, they don't normally just, throw a player in, making the jump from college when they're in a situation, they're a cup contending team, right? So, but I think, if you could get him into a game or two before the end of the regular season and just let him see the speed of the game, that's the biggest adjustment for players is the speed of the game. Now, he played in the Big Ten and, he played some pretty good programs in Michigan and, Ohio State, Penn State. Penn State and Ohio State were both tournament teams. So, you got some good competition, but it's not NHL competition. Right, it's bigger, faster, stronger. Guys are leaning on you. The playoffs are more intense. I mean, it's a different world for a forward, I think, to jump in and do things like that. So it's not an ideal situation. I'm not ruling it out, but it doesn't seem likely if you're the Lightning to do that. When you have, a Mitchell Chaffee who's had a hard time kind of getting the lineup here of late, and you have an Atkinson and whoever else they might have. And look, it depends. Maybe he goes to Syracuse and plays in the lineup there. Right, they're probably going to get in the playoffs, unless something disastrous happens over their final 2-week stretch. So there'll be playoff games there available too.
My whole thing with Isaac Howard is that, is there anybody on this roster that was as highly touted? And I mean, you look at Hedman, obviously, but I mean, a lot of these other guys, mid-draft picks, right? For the most part, you're looking at Isaac Howard, and I understand the jump. But do you think there's any way that the Lightning look at him and go, hey, he can give us – I don't think that they're going to look at him and saying, all right, he can play with Point and Kucherov. But do you think there's any part of the Lightning that look at Isaac Howard and go, wow, he can give us something in that middle six that we don't currently have on the roster right now? And I'm not talking about replacing a guy like Cirelli or Hagel, obviously, but playing with those guys or helping out on the third line. Because, it's hard to not look at that game last night against Ottawa and think, well, if he's there and he's got that knack for scoring goals, that's the kind of thing that you do throughout your entire career, regardless of what the competition is. I'm not talking about coming up and automatically lighting the world on fire, but he's got a knack for coming up with big plays. It's hard not to look at that game last night and think if he was around the net, he probably would have poked one in or he would have been in the right spot. Is there any way, do you think, that the Lightning look at it and go, not that we need him, but man, he could really present maybe just a different look than what we already have on the roster? Because was Mitchell Chaffee a highly regarded prospect? Is he a guy that is really part of the long-term plans? I mean, if he's been scratched so much the last couple of weeks, I just feel like I don't know if there's any hurt of getting him in there and possibly having a different look. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. You keep him with the team and then you go from there.
I think you're looking at it from only one end of the ice.
Mm-hmm.
Could he score a goal for you? Sure, he could.
Right.
He's got talent. He's a very talented player. But, you don't know what his defensive acumen is. I know Julian has praised his 200-foot game. I talked to Stacey Roost. He's a general manager in Syracuse, but he's still the director of player personnel. They both talked about how much he's worked on his 200-foot game. But that's the biggest difference. There's assignments. There's, that's where the speed of the game, factors in the most is, how can you adjust and make the right reads defensively? So, yeah, maybe he could score you a goal, but what if he costs you a goal? Right. That's the perspective. If you're John Cooper and the coaching staff, I mean, we've heard Coop talk about that quite a bit, about it all has to start with defensive play. And do not forget, in 2014, I know Coop that was his first full year in the NHL. When it came to the series against Montreal, who was in the lineup and who was out? Nikita Kucherov was out of the lineup, and Cedric Paquette was in the lineup.
Mm-hmm.
So That's the perspective you kind of have to have. Yes, he could potentially help you offensively. He's an offensively gifted player. He's got a lot of skill. What can he do at the other end that's not going to hurt you? And sometimes that's a perspective that teams and coaching staffs will take a look at, because you want to put a player in the best opportunity to succeed.
Mm-hmm.
And if they feel as if a mistake cost a team, what could that do in the long run? Right. I mean, because I think back, and now it didn't affect Cedric Paquette because he wasn't really a highly thought of prospect at the time, but he committed a penalty that ended up being the series clinching goal for Montreal. Right. So now it didn't affect him. There wasn't a lot of expectations, and obviously said he went on to be a pretty decent role player here in his years here. But I mean, that's something you kind of have to think about as well.
That's a good point. What do you think about a guy like Connor Geekie? Because I feel like he's played a lot better. We've seen a lot of good things from him in Syracuse. I'm a little surprised that maybe, because knock on wood, lighting have been relatively healthy up front pretty much this entire season. We haven't seen a lot of guys, 7 guys missing or anything like that. What's your thoughts on Connor Geekie and how he's played from, the limited, access we have to him from up there in Syracuse? And is there a possibility that we see Geekie down the stretch here?
Well, his contract is kind of what Isaac Howard's contract would be like, right? So there's bonus structures and everything else that you would have to account for if you bring him up. His base salary is fine. It's those bonuses that you have to worry about. So I don't know, unless something happens to somebody, that there's a chance you'll see, because I mean they're carrying basically 2 extra forwards right now anyway, right? I know they're dressing 7 and 11 most nights, so you've got 2 extra forwards, so it'll be hard, in a quote unquote emergency situation where you can use an emergency recall where you don't burn one of your limited recalls after the trade deadline. But the good news is that he's kind of found his offensive game a little bit. That kind of helps grow with the confidence. He's got 9 goals. I think he's got 6 of them in the last 8 games or something like that, 6 in the last 9 games. So you're seeing the offense come, and with that comes confidence. And that's what you want to see. That's what they wanted to see out of him, because you could see it. His game was suffering in terms of the confidence and how he could play. And he brings size. Obviously, he's got size. The Lightning don't have a lot of size up front. They're not a big team forward-wise. All their size is on the back end. So he would bring that element. He brings top 6 type skill for sure. And we'll see. I mean, there's also something to be said that, if he's not going to crack the lineup here and Syracuse is in the playoffs, which is better served? Even if is he better playing third line minutes, 6 or 7, 10 a night here? Or is he better playing 18 to 22 in a playoff situation for Syracuse? And, those are the things that I think they're going to have to balance out and figure out what is best for Connor Geekie in the long run, if that comes to fruition. And, look, I think I talked to Coop right before they left town, because, we saw the lineup kind of move around a little bit, lines moved around a bit. So I asked him, at what point do you kind of figure you have your lineup? Do you stop, quote unquote, experimenting? And he seemed pretty happy with what things look like right now, with Point, Gensel, and Kucherov, with Paul out there with Cirelli and Hagel, Gord in the middle with Bjorkstrand and Gonsalves, and then Glendening and Gergensons on the fourth line, and wingers rotating with them and dressing 7-11. I think they've been pretty happy with how that has played out. So, do you want to experiment with that? Do you want to kind of, change things up there? So there's a lot of considerations to kind of go into place here over the next 2 weeks before the regular season ends, and you get ready for the playoffs. Does the team you play matter in how you organize your lines, right? Do you want Paul in a matchup situation where he's with Hagel and Cirelli, who has been their matchup line? Do you want him back in the middle? I mean, there's lots of options that the coaching staff could do. And, do you bring up a player from Syracuse, if it's Geekie, and insert that? Do you do that right away? There's a lot of things to consider when talking about bringing up players. And because if Geekie's going to be here, he's got to play.
Yeah.
Right. Because then he's definitely best served getting postseason minutes in a different situation than not playing here.
What do you make of Bjorkstrand and Gord now that it's been, 12, 14 games since they've been here? What do you make of their time with the Bolts so far?
I think you're seeing Bjorkstrand get more and more comfortable, right? I did have a chance to chat with him before they left town, and, him and his family are in their own place now. right? I mean, that's a big thing off of a player's mind when they get moved in season, is to have that sort of off the ice stuff settle down a little bit. And, your mind doesn't have to think too much about that. You can worry more about what's taking place on the ice. I think you're seeing him more comfortable in the role that he's asked to play, in the type of style they want him to play, in the system that he's playing in. We've seen him get that wrist shot off, like we were waiting for it. And I know in the Utah game, his second goal was the 8th goal of an 8-0 game, but that's the shot we know he can score on, right? Wrist shot from distance, good, hard, accurate wrist shot. He almost got one off last night, almost in a similar manner. Got just deflected enough, or just enough of a stick to get in the way to not get the full whip through with the wrist shot. So he's looking more and more comfortable, and that's going to be a good sign. As I told him, I said, I think Lightning fans are sick of seeing you score goals against this team in the playoffs. He goes, yeah, I'm ready to score some for this team. So, we'll see how that plays out. And Yanni Gourde, he's been better than I thought, to be honest with you. He's got 9 assists, I think, now since he's been up. He's had chances to score. I think you'd like to see him get that goal to kind of just bring his energy level up. But I think he's so vocal, right? He's such a talker. I think it's infectious on the team. I think it gets the team's attention and kind of keeps them involved in the game. He'll drag you into the game. He got in the fight the other night on the island. I mean, he'll do that kind of stuff, and he has done that kind of stuff. So, I know we had the talk right before the trade went down, that the Yanni Gourde you're getting now is not the same Yanni Gourde we saw before. And I still think that's the case, but he's better than I thought he would be. I think he's definitely energized being here, being part of this team again, and being a part of a playoff situation, to where Seattle wasn't in that case. So it's been good to have him back. I think I'd like to see him win some more faceoffs and just get that first goal. Otherwise, I think Yanni's been better than we thought he would be.
You think he'll be back next year?
I don't know. It's a good question. They want him back. I mean, obviously Julian was very open about that idea. And, Yanni said he wasn't ready to kind of think about that yet. He was more worried about getting in and thinking things. I think they'd love to have him back. I mean, Luke Glendening's not signed next year at this point, right? Could he be a guy that just replaces Luke Glendening? It's a possibility. I think they'd like to have him back. I think Yanni would like to be back. It's just like everything else, it's going to come down to what the contract looks like. Yeah.
The dollars have to make sense. That's for sure. What do we have up on lightninginsider.com right now, buddy?
Hey, talking a lot about last night's game, right? Yeah. And, it was a type of game where the Lightning lost the game, but they didn't lose it, right? There wasn't a ton of mistakes that cost them that game. The biggest reason was the goalie at the other end. And sometimes it just happens in hockey. So a lot of sort of discussion on that case that's up there right now. So, go back and check it out and agree with me or don't agree with me. That's what I'm always looking for.
lightninginsider.com. Go sign up today. Use that promo code J&Z. Get $10 off, not just this season, but every recurring season. I say it a lot. Support local, especially with this Lightning team. Always going deep into the postseason. Erik gives you this in-depth coverage and that knowledge. He's been around for so long. Nobody knows the Lightning in the Tampa Bay area quite like Erik Erlendsson, lightninginsider.com. So please sign up today. Birthday gifts, don't use it for an anniversary gift, right? Your wife will probably get pissed. But birthdays, Christmas, Easter, Hanukkah, it's a great thing to get for the big Lightning fan that you know. Appreciate you, my friend. Oh, wait, real quick. How was the game on Wednesday? I told everybody I was going to ask you.
Well, obviously watching Skeen's pitch was a treat. Boy, can he throw. And I didn't realize at the time the seats we ended up getting were right down by the bullpen, so we got to see him throw some bullpen before he went out with a very good view of that. The atmosphere as a whole, different. Oh, my gosh, it's so much different. I mean, I don't think you're going to ever be able to get over the feel of games being played there that it doesn't have a spring training look and feel to it, just because the outfield walls and you don't have the high walls and everything. But like because Ed went with me and two of the kids, I looked at Ed one time and I went, man, it's quiet in here.
Yeah.
Right. You're used to at the Trop. There's at least ambient noise and, there's something somewhere you can kind of hear. There's a murmur or whatever. Like you got none of that at points during the game on Wednesday. That it just felt quiet. And that was weird to me. And I understand there's huge difference between, the Trop and playing outdoors at Steinbrenner. So it was much different. But you know what wasn't different? The concession prices.
Any sell the team chants? Somebody wants to know. Did you hear any of those?
I did not hear any of those. I think because we were all mesmerized by watching Skeen's pitch.
Yeah, you got that right. Nobody wanted to hear that. They were just trying to. Everybody's locked in on the best pitcher in baseball right now. Erik _Erlendsson. That's a K, not a C. 2 S's after the D. LightningInsider.com. Again, $10 off. Not just this season, but every recurring one after that. Appreciate it, my friend. Thank you much. Talk to you next week.
My pleasure. And Kevin just wanted me to let you know that it felt unnatural.
What does it say? What does that say?
Said it's unnatural. That's unnatural. How he felt about the atmosphere at Steinbrenner.
Well, tell Kevin, you know what's really natural? Kevin De Bruyne is gone. He's out of here. See ya. Get out of here. We don't want you anymore. And Manchester Derby coming up this weekend, baby. We're going to go for the double dip, baby. Listen, we don't got much to hang our hat on this year. If United can pull off the double against City, I mean, I'm good. I'll be a happy fan. That is for sure. So you let your son know, all right?
I'll try and relay the message. Probably not as enthusiastically, though.
You're the man. Have a good weekend, buddy.
All right, man. See you today.
All right, pal. Erik Erlendsson, LightningInsider.com. Support local, man. LightningInsider.com. Use that promo code JNZ. I wanted to get to this real quick before we hopped off. Tim Word. What's up, Timothy? Why did the Buccaneers clear so much cap space? Trey Hendrickson. I wish, brother. I wish. I don't think that's happening, especially signing Hassan Reddick. But what you got to do is you got to clear some cap space before the draft because you're going to have to sign some of these guys. And then there's also some of those kind of ancillary free agents that you have to bring in to kind of fill in the holes. So it's only about $16 million in cap space. I just looked it up for you, Timothy. I wouldn't make too much of it. We knew that was going to happen. We had this conversation with Greg Allman a couple of months ago. He said, don't be surprised. There's going to be some moves here when it comes to guys, moving money around, and you need that to sign the guys that you're going to draft. So good question. And I appreciate you tuning in. All right, it's going to wrap it up for me. Jay, did you see Jobu in the St. Louis Blues locker room? I did. This is the original Jobu, though. But the St. Louis Blues are killing it, man. They're crushing it. March Madness this weekend. Shout out to everybody. Oh, you got 30.9 million on the OTC. All right, from what I'm seeing, it was dead cap was 33. Top 51 cap space is 16. Okay. I don't know if that let me look it up for you, buddy. Let me look it up for you. I don't want to get off air without answering your question. All right, cap space for the Buccaneers, 30 mil. Effective cap space is 27. They also have dead money, which is 33. All right, effective cap space is probably 27 there. Yeah, even then, if you bring in a guy like Hendrickson, you're going to have to sign him to a, you're bringing him in and you're not going to trade for him unless you sign him to a longer term deal. Yeah, I don't know if that's going to make a lot of sense for the Buccaneers to bring him in. Knowing that you have Hassan Reddick, you have Yaya Diaby, it seems like going into this season that the Buccaneers, from everybody that I've talked to, they want it to be Hassan Reddick on one side, and they want Yaya Diaby to be that guy on the other side. With Chris Braswell and another draft pick being 3 and 4 before Anthony Nelson and Jose Ramirez and guys like that. So, does that mean they go out? And you know what? More and more I think about it, Timothy, I think another option here is if they don't get the guy they like at the off-ball linebacker spot or the cornerback position, do you throw some of that money there? I think that's something to certainly be cognizant of, especially I know they like Servassier Dennis, but he's a guy, we have to, where's the health concern there? Luke Easterling brought that point up when we were talking about Jahad Campbell. This is a guy, will he be ready week 1? We don't know. And those guys that aren't ready week 1, it takes them damn near half the season to really kind of get into gear. And we saw that with Kalijah Kancey a couple of times. So listen, if that meant that they were trading for Trey Hendrickson and they do that, Timothy, come right back on the podcast and I will admit that I'm wrong. Hold my hand up. I love it. I love that. But they're going to need to be able to sign some of these draft picks. And I still don't think that they're necessarily done in free agency either. And it's not like you have to use all of that cap space. You want to be able to keep some of that cap space open during the year in case something happens. So great question, man. And that's something that you and I will keep an eye on as the year goes on. But But yeah, a little bit higher than I thought. So good stuff there. 27 million when it comes to the effective cap space that they have. So we'll see. We shall see. Good question, though. All right, that's going to wrap it up for me. A big thank you to everybody that joined us on the program today, including Luke Easterling and Erik Erlendsson from lightninginsider.com. Big announcement on Monday for a guest that's coming up at the end of next week. So make sure you're tuned in on Monday. Thank you to everybody for the super chats today. David Terry, love you. Craig Kurtzman, Lady Evil, couldn't do this without you guys. Thank you so much. Follow me on all social media platforms at Recher. Like and subscribe on YouTube. Hit that notifications bell. Share this on your social media as well. Every little bit helps. Shout out to UT and USF, all the teams going on this weekend, the Rowdies, the Sun, everybody, Lightning, Rays. Appreciate you all, man. And let's keep supporting local, supporting our teams here in the Tampa Bay area. Onward and upwards. And good luck to everybody with the women's Final Four here at Amalie Arena. It's going to be an incredible matchup. We have some insane teams there in action, and I can't wait to watch. It's going to be good stuff. All three of those teams have beaten South Carolina. Let's see if they have revenge on their minds. And, of course, we see Duke and Houston and Florida. And why am I drawing a blank? Duke and Houston, Florida, and – oh my God, why can't I think of the other team in the Final Four? Duke and Houston, Florida, and Auburn. Oh my God, how could I forget the SEC matchup? Of course. That game's going to be crazy. And Jay Billis said it, and I couldn't agree. Thank you, Timothy. I was Auburn, man. We've been talking about it all freaking weekend, all week. Is Broom going to be healthy? He looks good. That SEC clash, Bruce Pearl and Todd Golden, and then, of course, the other side with Kelvin Sampson in Houston against John Shire and Duke Blue Devils. Can't wait, man. It's going to be great. It's going to be a great weekend all around. So enjoy it, and we'll talk about it all on Monday right here on the program. Again, at JRetro on all social media platforms. Like and subscribe on YouTube. That wraps it up for me. I love you all. We'll see you Monday right here at noon on the JRetro Podcast.